All right, we're live on the Facebooks, and now we go 3, 2, and 1. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Persuasion by the Pint. I'm Jonathan Taylor, along with
Sean McCool.
Sean. Today we're doing a kind of a random flight. We're going to talk some ads. We're going to talk commercials that are pretty captivating, and we got some random things to touch on that are all persuasion related.
Absolutely, yeah. So, and got some good beverages, or at least I hope they're good, at least on my end.
That's right.
Got a brand new shipment from the original Craft Beer Club. So excited to try one of those. We're into the fall flavors. So I've got an Oktoberfest to pull out this time. So I'm excited to try that. What do you have over there?
Let's see. I'm pulling up my that's my cue to pull up the banner.
There's your banner, your ad banner.
And with that said, this episode is brought to you by our friends over at the Craft Beer Club. Outstanding craft beers from the finest independent microbreweries in the USA. As you know, craft beers have exploded. I need an explosion little sound thing on over here.
You do.
Whenever I say that word, I feel like I need to.
That would make all the difference right there.
I feel like some fireworks would emphasize this ad read even more. They've exploded in popularity. There are thousands of awesome craft beers that are being produced in new microbreweries, and they're all just clamoring for your attention. One of the best ways to sample these beers is by letting the original Craft Beer Club do all the legwork as they bring some of the best beer discoveries in the country straight to you. Sean, you're part of that, man. You're like one of their testers, man, because you get these you get the samples every month and you go through these. So you're going to bring one to our attention today. Also a little trivia, I think.
Yeah. So we've got some trivia. We've got some I'll do the trivia. I'll read the question. You can think on it a little bit. The people can think on it. So the trivia question for today is going to be, what is black malt? What is black malt for $400? All right. So
I'll take black malt for $500, Alex.
Yeah. Yes. All right. So this week's brew is an Oktoberfest, as I said. It's kind of in a weird can. They just literally stuck a label over it, and it was pretty cool because they put a little note in the box that said, "Hey, Brickway Brewery Oktoberfest," but you can see like the can, the can kind of shining through the other can.
It looks like a label that's been wrapped around another label.
It is, right? So it's kind of cool. They sent a note in the box and said, "We apologize, but there's a can shortage, and microbreweries are the last people to get cans because the big boys get the cans first." That's awesome. At least they explained it. They didn't just leave it hanging, which is that's a good little marketing tip all on its own right there.
Absolutely.
So this is Omaha's Brickway Brewery and Distillery. They're up in Omaha, Nebraska, and it's both a brewery and a distillery. So they have 30 craft beers and 10 different spirits. Sounds like a place that we should visit sometime.
Absolutely, yes.
And the founder, I love this. They send you like a 3/4 of a sheet about the brewery itself, and Minnesota native Jack Tremart found his passion for mixing chemistry and brewing while attending college at the University of Wisconsin. And then get this, Jonathan, they didn't have this when you and I went to college. He furthered his studies in Scotland, earning a master's degree in brewing and distilling from Edinburgh, Scotland's esteemed Harrowat University.
Wow.
Where was that when we were? I don't remember that major being in the catalog at the University of Georgia. Do you?
I don't.
It's probably there now.
I would have changed my third year in college just to become a brewmeister, right?
I know, right? Yeah, I'm sure it's a major now, but it certainly wasn't then. So anyway, this guy's been top 20 entrepreneurs to watch, big thinkers under 40. So he's kind of sounds like he's kind of doing well for himself. And the Oktoberfest that we have is a Marzen style beer, 5.5% ABV, a traditional Marzen style beer. Like those that originated in Bavaria, Brickway's Oktoberfest is a delicious amber lager with a nice biscuity flavors, a crisp mouthfeel, and a great balance of German hops. This is perfectly roasted and malty brew, is full of flavor, and pairs well with traditional October favorites like German beer brats and sauerkraut. Do love a good brat.
Oh yeah, now's the time, right?
Exactly. So, what do you think a black malt is? I'll do this and then we'll do your beer.
Black malt, yeah, because I've been thinking about black malt. That's not what they put in malt liquor, is it?
No, it's not. But it is something we should know about because we both like dark beers, and black malt is one of the things that makes dark beers darker. Okay. So black patent malt, otherwise known as black malt, is the darkest of the common roasted malts. It gives beer dark color and rich roasted flavors with a very different character than roasted barley. Black malt is created by roasting at very high temperatures and is often used in stouts and dark beers. So very much like a dark coffee roast. It's roasted at a high temperature. Same kind of thing. Black malt is just really well roasted malt.
Interesting. See, you don't come on here just to hear us sip some beer and talk marketing and persuasion. You also get a little history of beer making and all trivia.
Yeah, good
absolutely.
Stuff.
We aim to please. We educate.
Yeah. So see, now I threw myself off because I was thinking black malt, and this is this is not a dark beer. There was one in the box, which I'll do next week, but this is actually more like an amber.
Oh yeah, it's
amber ale.
It's like an amber. Yeah.
Oktoberfest, I guess, or a Marzen, whatever Marzen style. Marzen. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. There's one of those little fancy lines over the A. So is that Marzen? I don't know.
Probably Marzen.
Yeah, I don't know. Please write in and tell us we're saying things wrong. We love that.
Which we commonly do.
Yeah, we love that kind of stuff. Keeps us humble. Keeps us humble when you write in and tell us our grammar is incorrect.
Like just like a couple of episodes back when I had I called it a narwhal, and then I took it over to I took some over to a friend's house, and he said, "Oh, it's a narwhal." Really? Because I called it narwhal on our show, because I'm pretty sure I pronounced it wrong there. So,
oh well.
But it doesn't have an E on the end, so I just assumed.
I think it's narwhal. I think he was wrong.
Okay. Well, yeah, I told him. Are you sure about that?
Was that your brother-in-law?
No, it wasn't. Wasn't my brother-in-law. It was a friend who's a huge fan of that beer. But I think maybe just because it's a whale, he assumed it was narwhal. So
yeah,
we went back and forth on that.
That's how rumors get started. That's how it happens. All right, what do you have over there on your side of the planet?
All right, well, I've got a good one. I've got a Marzen. I've got a Marzen style too, Oktoberfest.
Really? Look at that. We're on the same page today.
It is Highland, one of my favorite brewing companies.
I thought it looked like Brooklyn from a distance there, but Highland Brew, okay. Over in Asheville.
Yep, over in Asheville, North Carolina. This is the Clawhammer.
I like it.
Clawhammer Oktoberfest. So this is only 5%, ABV. But if you go over, I know on Beer Advocate, they've got some high reviews. So they might persuade me a little bit looking at some of these reviews, but I'm going to try to use my own judgment.
You primed and framed and like influenced yourself.
This is a Bavarian inspired, obviously Asheville made smooth lager. It's well-rounded with toasty malt character. Malt character. But so it should be good. I gotta pop.
Nobody wants soggy malt character.
Yeah, I know. Well-rounded. What does that mean?
I don't know. Probably means the same thing as a crisp mouthfeel. Whatever that means. I don't know.
It's all about visual marketing, right? Okay, here we go. Mine looks about the same as yours. Let's see. Let me hold this up.
Yeah, it does look very similar. Well, maybe yours is a little darker. Oh. About the same.
All right. Cheers. Oh, that was weak. There we go. Oh, yeah, man.
That's good. Oh, mine's good too. Mine's good too. I guess we like Marzen beers.
Marzen. All right. So I'm going to have to take another sip. just so I'm not persuaded, because I've been primed a little bit looking at the Beer Advocate. So
Yep.
here we go.
You have to divide by 5 if they're doing a scale of 100. Just divide their numbers by 5, and you'll have, or by 20, and you'll have your score.
I'm gonna give it a not as high of a rating on our scale because we are the 5 pints.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give this like a 3.75. I mean, it's good, but it doesn't just stand out.
Pulling out the double decibels. Wow. I think that's have you done a double
3.75? Yeah. So we'll round it up. You can round it up either way, right? Or round it down.
Yeah.
I think you have to go up. You have to go to 3.8 when you go 3.75.
Right. Yeah. That's the rules from 3rd grade math or whatever grade that was. I don't know. It's probably 3rd grade these days.
So, you know what? I'll be nice and just say 3.8.
There you
Let's just say 3.8.
I don't know. I kind of like the go in 2 decimal points. I mean, it feels like we're really nailing down the qualities here. I'm probably gonna be in the same range. It's good. And it's definitely like I could have 3 or 4 of these at the bar watching a football match or something.
Sure.
On the pitch. So that'd be like soccer on the field. Our last guest,
when he said football, it was a different football for him, right?
Yeah, and he said the pitch. So I don't know if you've watched. So one of my colleagues that I work with, she told me to watch Ted Lasso. I think I mentioned on the last episode, or right before. But so I'm learning all kinds of like English words. Plus, we have a couple of English people on the team at the agency. So I'm learning all these new words, that are in the English, and learning to be able to translate. It's not the same language. I don't care what they say. Like it's a different language. Like they have all these words that we don't use over here.
Yep.
So, but that show Ted Lasso is really funny because he's, coming from like the Midwest and he's trying to learn English all over again. Football, the pitch is the field. Right. Like it's just crazy. So, I'm going to give this a 3.5.
Okay.
Not bad, but not, something I would go out and buy a 6-pack of, but it's good. I will definitely drink all of them. I won't give them away. So it's kind of in that, good range, solid range.
Good.
I'm looking forward.
I think this one, like I was expecting a different aftertaste, but it's just kind of a flat aftertaste. It's really good going in, but then on the aftertaste, it's just nothing there. So
it's almost like a dry wine or a dry beer. Yeah, mine's the same way. So that must be part of the style. Yeah, is that it just kind of finishes like super clean.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know about biscuit. So mine said biscuity flavors and crisp mouthfeel. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what that means. I mean, I'm from the South. You're from the South.
Biscuity.
When you say biscuity flavor, it better taste like it was made with Bisquick.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
So don't even say Bisquick, man. It's got to be homemade.
Oh, homemade. Come on now. Bisquick's good stuff, man. It's good.
I'm thinking fresh, handmade biscuits.
Hardee's biscuits.
Oh yeah,
Hardee's makes some good biscuits for sure.
Those thick.
I do miss that. We don't have those out here. Yep. So I have to grab some of those when I'm in Florida the next couple weeks.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, let's talk about some persuasion and marketing. Okay. I sent you a video, and we're gonna fire it up. You'll recognize them if you're on audio only. If you're just listening to the podcast, I think you'll recognize the sounds and the voices. If you're watching, no mistaking like what's going on here. And we've talked about this before in the past. Even the last episode, we hinted at it. So if you got it fired up, we can go ahead and play it.
All right. Let's step back a little in time, and here we go. That would be the time to start.
The 1966 E-Type Roadster. My father spent 3 years restoring this car. It is his love, it is his passion, it is his fault he didn't lock the garage.
Don't even think about it.
Hi, Dad.
Been there,
done that.
With LiftMaster powered by MyQ, know what's happening in your garage from anywhere.
Kids.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So so to give that some perspective, so it's the two kids, they're dressed like oh man, what's the second character's name? That's
The second character,
Ferris's friend. I can't.
Cameron.
Cameron, yes. So there's two kids. They're dressed like Ferris and Cameron. They're going into this nice garage. Instead of a Ferrari, though, it's a Jaguar, but still, it's definitely the same garage, same looking car. And they're about to take it for a spin. And then he's got basically like a Ring camera, but it's, it's installed in the garage door opener.
Right.
And then, so it alerts Cameron at work, and he calls them off so they don't drive his car off the back of the garage later in the day. So, but it goes to show just that nostalgia. Like, as soon as it came on the other night, I was like, brings me back. Like, that was one of the cult classics, in the 80s. Like, that just,
even the line where he's introducing the car is straight from the I mean,
music
word for word, but it's got to be straight. It sounds like it's straight from the movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different car, but it is the same cadence, same everything, same music in the background.
Yeah,
the classic Ferris Bueller music.
Yeah.
So, and one of the things you have to do in marketing is you have to get people's attention. So if who is the buyer for that? It's somebody that has a house and it has something in the garage that they kind of want to protect, right?
Yeah.
So homeowner, chances are it's going to be later millennial up through boomer, right? But definitely there's a huge section of Generation Xers that was really targeted towards, that own houses and might have a custom car, might have a motorcycle, might just have really nice lawn equipment, whatever it is, but you'd like an eye kept on that.
Yeah.
But you can't look away when that comes on as a Gen X, somebody that grew up in the 80s. You're like, Ferris Bueller, like, one of the greatest movies ever. Like, it's just something you have to watch, and you notice it's a little different. So it kind of keeps you guessing. You don't know what's being sold. Looks at first like a Jaguar ad, because they zoom in on the Jaguar logo. You're like, well, that's an old Jaguar, so they couldn't be selling that. Or excuse me, Jaguar. Jaguar. We should have had our last guest say that, and we could pipe it in. But yeah, and then it kind of it goes to the office scene, and Cameron is there, and is a much older Cameron. And that's when I realized, holy crap, I guess I've aged as much as Cameron too, because Cameron and I were about the same age at one point. But he looks much older now.
Yeah,
I know, right? I've got no hair. He's got gray hair.
Yeah, that's just a really cool, because that's, I mean, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. That's a cult classic. So just about anybody that grew up in the 80s, even 90s, and even my son, who's 14, actually caught that. I caught him watching that on Netflix. This was a few months back, because it was all during whole COVID thing. This was when COVID was going, and people were binge watching on programs or finding stuff to watch. And I caught him watching one night. He was watching Ferris Bueller. I'm like, do you realize I was watching that? That was like my time, that I was watching that back in the 80s. And that is just an enormous cult classic that I don't know how many times I've watched it, but
oh yeah, 100.
He was like, oh yeah, it's funny. He actually thought it was funny. I think the funniest part was obviously their principal.
So 1986, I mean, you were right at his age, right? 14-ish, somewhere in there.
Absolutely. Yeah, it sure was.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's a classic. So yeah, using nostalgia, and Dan Kennedy's talked about this for years, right? I mean, he talks about in his different books, if you're going to be marketing to boomers, you should be driving classic cars from the 50s, or drive up in a classic car from the 50s to your appointment, or have pictures of those kind of things in your office, because it's, pipe in that music in the waiting room. If you're a financial planner, have those kind of things there, so that it really makes them nostalgic and feels good, and they feel like you understand them, because you're playing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I think and it could just be because we're from that generation, but it seems to me because like your son watching it, it seems like the '80s transcend some generations, and I don't know if it's just because everything was it's kind of a big boom time, kind of like the '50s were.
Mm-hmm.
But the '80s were a huge boom time. Everything was working. People were making lots of money. It was just a really kind of upbeat, for most part, time. There's always stuff, but so I think it just has a lot of good feelings around the whole decade anyway.
Sure.
So
well, you see it in products being marketed today, from everything from, I even see it watches. I mean, just clothing, what people wear. I mean, what goes around, eventually comes back around, but
most of the big hit movies, whether it's Transformers or even Marvel. I mean, those were, in DC, not that DC does real well, but even so, I mean, those get green lighted because, we grew up watching the Justice League on Saturday mornings.
Sure.
Right. So they've, spinning those out again. And so, yeah, there's a lot of stuff. And I know some of those were redone from the '50s as well. Like there's a lot of stuff in the '80s that, especially the comic book stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, stuff like, Transformers is a big one because that was a toy back in the day, so it's just interesting to watch all that stuff come around. And the question is, like, how can you use that? How can you play into that nostalgia?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's a cult following of people that you look at Comic-Con and, people that follow, guys like Adam West, who was, I think we talked about him recently. Yeah. Going to a Dan Kennedy's event, but that guy made a fortune, even 30, 40 years after he was TV's Batman, just because people just follow those things. There's such a nostalgia, there's such a draw, so people would visit him and go to him at Comic-Con, and that's the same with all of these people, whether it's former athletes back from the '80s or the '90s, or people that we grew up watching, whether it's, on TV and movies, sports related, you name it. There is a nostalgia factor that follows everything. So, yeah.
And so, I mean, someday it'll be, whatever the millennials like, and then it'll be whatever, Gen Z is into, and all that stuff will come back around. But right now, it seems like if you can market to the '80s themes,
right? You can write it, if you can incorporate it in your sales copy, even in videos or anything that you're doing. I think that's a good way to capture.
Yeah, even one-liners in your sales copy or things like that. Where you can, and we do it all the time here on the show, just because we're from that era. But if you're on Facebook and you're engaging your audience, throw a meme in that's from, if that's whatever era they're from, your target audience. It doesn't have to be the '80s, but obviously whatever they're from. So if you're going after boomers, and you comment on somebody's meme, like use a meme from the '50s, Frankie Valli or Elvis, or if they grew up in the '70s, get some classic rock and stuff like that in there. All those things, because it's funny because, we're always told in copy to be unique and fresh and all this stuff. But at the same time, there's a lot of power in familiarity and things that feel familiar, because it feels safe. Like you survived that time. So it must have been a good time. So there's part of your brain that just sees that as a safe,
absolutely
happy, easy time.
And it's part of that compare and contrast, because our mind is always comparing and contrasting to two things. And so what we have here is the 2020, which is, people know 2020 has been a nightmare for so many people with everything that's going on. But it kind of, your mind starts to contrast, the '80s. And trust me, we had plenty of problems back in the '80s.
Oh yeah, everybody was the Cold War, Red Dawn. Like every other movie was also a fight with the Russians, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So it wasn't like
your
it was
mind,
carefree.
but yeah, exactly. Yeah. So even though there were just as many problems back then as there are today, our mind is in the, we frame things into compare and contrast this to this. And so we look at those, the time or the decade of the 80s, or if it's the 90s that you grew up in, as a time of, wow, man, those were the good days compared to now, because everybody, you're in it, you're in the middle of it now. So you have to compare it and contrast it to something. So you look at that and say, it was a great time.
Well, yeah. And literally your brain's like, I survived that. So it must've been okay.
It must've been good. Yeah.
Yeah. And now you're in the middle of it. It's like, I don't know if I'm going to survive this or not. Like,
I don't know.
So
this
your
may
brain,
be the end. This may be the end. Yeah.
So it feels more panicked in the moment always.
Sure.
Right. But yeah, I mean, we were doing, like in the 50s, 50s is another time that's considered like a boom and, feel good and all that. But at the same time, they were doing drills in school for atomic bomb blast, because that was all under the threat of atomic bombs and nuclear war and all that kind of stuff. Which was kind of like the 80s too. Like it's a lot of feel good, but War Games, another Matthew Broderick movie, right? It's all about thermonuclear warfare.
That's right.
So yeah, it's
and Tab. Yeah, every time I see that movie, it's. Do you remember Tab? Like,
yes, my mom drank Tab like it was going out of style. Like, and it's still around.
No way.
Yes, I've got a friend. That's all she drinks.
Where do you? I've never seen a Tab.
She still finds it. I don't know where she finds it, but it's still out there.
Gross.
It's still being produced.
Disgusting. So. I mean, I had a Tab, and I thought they were nasty, but
yeah.
I cannot believe that people still actually drink it and find it.
I don't know how you find it, but yeah, it's out there apparently. So
wow.
All right. Well, do you have? I've got another one.
Nope. Let's go to your next one.
All right. So I have a little page that I got in the mail. Wednesdays is always like the coupon pack day from the grocery store flyers, and it's got all the fast food coupons and stuff in it. So this was in that. And I'm going to share my screen real quick for those watching.
All right.
Let's see. Share screen. This screen.
All right.
All right. So there we go. So it's just a one page, kind of a thin sheet of paper that looks like a proposal or a statement or an estimate of some kind. And it looks like it's letterhead from Renewal by Andersen, which is a window company. And it's got handwriting font.
Can you enlarge that a little bit on your end?
Yeah.
Zoom in. Because that is awesome. So, that's the first thing that when you sent me that, I'm thinking.
So here's kind of the overview of it. It looks, you can tell it's one page and that. And as I zoom in, not quite that much, you can see it's got the letterhead. It looks, it's got the green and white lines like you would find in the old clipboard that the guy coming out to do an estimate would do. And it says, we're available in your neighborhood to provide quotes for dash. And then it says replacements of windows, blah, 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 patio doors. And then it's got like a handwritten buy one, get one 40% off every window and patio door. I mean, it looks just like almost like an estimate somebody would leave behind if they came and did a presentation.
Except the handwriting is too clean.
Yeah. And a good salesman would never leave this behind unless they got the sale. Our installations is always included. No hidden fees. It's even got a typo. Plus special financing to get your neighborhood discount. Please call my office today. Virtual in-home consultants available limited time. Offer expires, so it's got the urgency. And this is nice. They put it far enough out, that sometimes I see these mailings and like it's 2 days away, and it's it's just not enough time for most people. And it really stuck out in the mail for me. Enough that obviously I'm now talking about it. And I was like, but how would I use this? Let me stop my sharing. So, and here's what it looks like if you're,
was this in a full 8.5 by 11 envelope when you?
No, this was just in the stack of coupons. It was in the insert.
Oh, I see.
Coupons.
Okay.
So it was just loose. So you didn't have to open anything. If you're flipping through the grocery flyer, it was right in there with the grocery flyers that come on Wednesday.
That's really cool.
So I was like, well, how could I use this online? Obviously there's lots of ways you could use it offline, but how could I use this online? So I was thinking about it, and I was like, you could create a PDF that looked pretty much the same, and you could attach it to an email, and you could say your proposal attached, and have kind of the same thing, kind of the highlights of what you might offer in your service package or something like that, and then call to reserve your space or something like that. But it would just, that subject line, your proposal attached, is going to get opened. Right. And that's one of the hardest things with email, is just get it opened first.
Right.
And then you have a PDF designed by somebody on Fiverr for, $5 or $25 that says, proposal in the top corner with your letterhead. It's got the green and white lines. You do a handwritten font, and boom, like it looks like a real proposal that you're just sending out.
Right.
But because it says proposal, people are going to be like, I don't remember getting a proposal. Did I request a proposal? So they have to open it.
Yeah.
So you could do that. You could just stick this in the mail as well. You could do it in an envelope, a handwritten envelope. And then this is, folded in a number 10 envelope or whatever. So there's lots of ways you could use that, but it just really stood out, and it kind of made me stop and read it. We're in a rental right now, so it's not something I would need.
Right.
But it did catch my attention, and that's the hardest part of marketing right now, is to capture attention and get people to slow down enough to actually look at your piece of paper that you're sending out. So how would you use this in your business? Like, could you use something like that in your business?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, there's ways to send a quote or something, but I'm trying to see, because to me, that's that's different than any kind of marketing. So, I've toyed with using, like, in terms of personal handwriting and things like that, I think is, you could write down things on a legal pad. My biggest problem is my handwriting. I'd have to get somebody else to handwrite, because my handwriting sucks. There's companies that do that. So I mean, I think that it's cool if you can do that. I know I send out cards a lot to, and you don't have to use the format of a personal, like a folding card, the traditional style. You can actually use postcards. And one of the things that I do on there is a handwritten font, where they scan your font on there, and then you upload it. So I can literally type out something, and it basically uses my handwriting font in that. And it's a clean handwriting, because everything's in, what they do is they scan everything, because you write it in print, all of the letters in, not cursive, but just regular print. And they scan it. So it looks really good. I mean, it's very readable, unlike my cursive writing, which is pretty sloppy. But I've used that time and time again, like to, on like postcards, not just greeting cards, but postcards, to get people's attention. And kind of, it's a little bit different than stuff that they would normally get. First of all, it's coming to them, which they don't get a lot of. I mean, a lot of in my B2B customers, they don't get, especially if I'm targeting somebody specifically, like a decision maker, they may not get a lot of like promotional stuff. Those guys don't get a lot of promotional stuff. So anything you can do that's kind of unique really captures their attention anyway. So
yeah, and the handwritten can sometimes get past the gatekeeper when other stuff won't. But there's actually a company I used to work with when I was doing more copy, called Think Inc. Marketing. And they actually do handwritten, like custom handwritten stuff. And they actually use a real pen, real ink. So it's not a computer doing it. It's actually, I think they use like almost like a CNC machine, but it handwrites.
Oh, wow.
Right? And it actually has the pen in the machine, and then the machine literally writes. So you know how, so you can literally like feel the indentation on the paper. To tell if it's real or not. Right. Because not a lot of people, us guys that know marketing will like sometimes like feel the, is there really indentation?
They really write that? Yeah, exactly.
So that's what they do, and pretty cool stuff.
Wait, did you say Think Inc?
Yeah, thinkinkmarketing.com. I don't know if my guy that I worked with is still there or not, but we could probably have him on the show at some point. But it's pretty cool. So it's really all custom. So you can you can do full handwritten letters.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to see if they had any. They a lot of times they just do the envelopes, but they can also do the letters and post-it notes and things like that. Pretty wide range of stuff. Anything you can think of, they can do it. It ain't cheap, but
No.
because it gets opened. I mean, if you're doing something like a Dream
Target
100
$1 million
list,
customer. Yeah, I mean it's
a Dream 100 list, it's absolutely worth it, right? Because you can get that chance of you getting that opened or so much higher if it has that look and feel. And so literally you could just, you could send them a half page written, typed out. They'll transfer it to handwriting, handwrite the letter, handwrite the envelope, and really, really powerful.
Interesting.
Yeah. And like I said, it just catches attention.
We need to, because I just Googled Think Inc. and I come up with there's a lot of different websites. Anyway, if you find it, send it to me and I'll post it on the show page for this one.
Yeah. I'll throw it in the old private chat here.
That'd be cool. Yeah. Cause I'd like to check that out. Because it's really, even when I use send-out cards, even though they use your font, like you said, people are savvy enough to know that it's been printed on there, even though it's your personal handwriting. With something like this, it's a little bit different. So let's see.
Yeah, you can definitely tell the difference.
Thinking.
They don't actually have any samples on their site, which is surprising.
Cool.
But yeah,
I have used, and not so much in my own business, but for real estate. I've used this before to get people's attention if I want to, like, for investing. So I find people that are, they have properties that they own and they're renting out to see if they'd be interested in selling. So I had one, and it's usually one that it's like, I really want. So I have I have like a template letter that I put together that it's all already kind of printed out. And what I'll sometimes do is if it's a big deal that, I really want that property, sometimes I'll sit down and literally handwrite on a legal pad just to be different.
Yeah.
Like what I would, my proposal. And then sometimes I'll attach a amortization schedule if I'm wanting to offer like the opportunity for, just mentioning like owner financing or something like that. But generally I don't do that on the first one, but
yeah. And it just comes across different because it's, it is a personal touch, even
Absolutely.
if you do it in bulk, it just really stands out because they're used to getting, mass marketed postcards from the, the We Buy Ugly Houses people and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So if you can,
absolutely,
if you can look like you're just an ordinary person doing a little investing, most people would rather sell to that person than to somebody who's buying 50 houses a year. Right.
Yep.
Because people want to know that their house is being, even when they're getting rid of it, they just kind of want to know their house is being taken care of and that,
absolutely,
that kind of stuff. So all those little things add up, and it's the same in any business transaction. People want to do business with people, other people, not other companies.
Yeah. So it works every time I've done it and followed up with a phone call. Cause usually what I'll do is send a letter and then follow it up with a phone call. People are like, oh yeah, I got your letter. Yeah. It's like, yeah, I had a chance to read it. And so they're so much more open to talking to you once you introduce yourself and just basically say, I'm following up. You probably got this letter a few days ago that I sent. You're like, yep, I sure did. So, and it creates a conversation.
Because it's actually memorable.
Yep, exactly.
Right?
It stood out.
If you send one that, looks like everybody else's, then they're going to be like, don't think I got it. Or yeah, here it is. I haven't had a chance to read it yet. Can I call you back?
I actually use I have a fountain pen that I for that very purpose, because I found that like with most pens, like a ballpoint or, just any ballpoint out there, I still slip, a little bit, but with I've come to find out in all of my years of writing that if I try to use a fountain pen, I actually don't make as many mistakes. And I guess it's just because it's a smoother writing. So I actually use a fountain pen on a legal pad when I write these out.
Wow.
So totally old school.
The inner workings of Jonathan Taylor. Man, I had no idea. That's some next level tactics.
Talk about retro, man. Going back, like, we talk about nostalgia. Fountain pen and a piece of paper.
Yeah, I mean, do you use a quill feather and dip it in the ink? I mean, you're not there yet, but
No. I'm a little more sophisticated. I use cartridges. So
okay, all right. Yeah, I mean, I like using the gel pens because that's kind of that same reason. They look a little. If you're doing something like that, they do look a little bit even more handwritten than sometimes a ballpoint is too crisp, and it could look like a font, but
exactly
not with my writing. Probably, I don't think they make a font like that, but. But either way, you do need to slow down because it's got to be legible if you're going to try this tactic.
Absolutely.
And I think what you said, having a template that's already typed out and you're just copying it.
All you're doing is copying it. Yep.
Yeah. Although I would say though that, if you have to cross some stuff out, like I think it's fine. Like, or you could do it very intentionally, that's another way to kind of use some psychology is to maybe cross out a couple words and put a better word or, price or anything like that.
Or just make a little notations or even like a little doodle of something like that off to the side. It's all about getting them to think, man, this is different. It looks completely different from anything that I've gotten. And it's, somebody sees that you've taken the time and invested the time to actually sit down and handwrite, which usually if I handwrite a letter, it's usually like a single page on a, like I use, because I have these legal pads all over the place in my office. And I buy these things by the stacks, so I just fill these things up. But usually I'll sit down if I'm sending out one of these letters to a real estate prospect. I'll sit down and write it out, handwrite it. And I try not to go more than a page. I try to get it all in one page just to keep it simple.
Yeah.
And then send it out, so
get a nice little coffee ring on it,
absolutely. That's like a stamp. It's like you're, one of those stamps, except you just put the cup in the coffee and then you stamp it.
Yeah. It's like your wax seal, coffee ring seal. That's all good stuff. I mean, and there's so many applications for this. Like, it could be businesses. Don't be, you don't have to look too polished just because you're going to a business. Like sometimes you need to go the other way to stand out, use the handwritten stuff. So if you're trying to land those dream clients, it's a great, tool to use for sure. And then there's, the kind of the derivative of that. It's a little bit more mass market, but it still stands out.
So here's a good, I didn't intend for this at all, but I just happen to be going through this book again this past week. It's called How to Get a Meeting with Anyone. So what you're talking about lines up perfectly with this book. And I would say that anyone that is trying to land, clients in their business, like major clients that are like, Fortune 500 type clients that you want to spend time with and want to
probably have gatekeepers and all that stuff.
Exactly. This is the book to get. And I think I've mentioned it maybe on past episodes, but I've had it for a while, but I actually have decided, I pulled it off the shelf. I'm like, man, this is real, because it's just chock full of good strategies in here, but it talks about, how to get people's attention and doing exactly what you said, handwriting things, get people's attention and get you past the gatekeeper a lot of times. This guy, Stu Heineck, he's actually a cartoonist for the New Yorker. He used one of the ways that he gets attention and kind of breaks the pattern of, everybody, promoting using traditional sales promotion, is he used a lot of his drawings. And what he'll do is he'll custom tailor his drawings. He just won't send like a standard cartoon. He'll custom tailor it to the company that he's trying to get an interview with. Right. So that's just one example. But
Well,
if you're not, even if you're not a cartoonist, he talks about lots of ways that you can custom tailor your message to make it more personal, to get the attention of those people that you want to get meetings with. So,
yeah, that reminds me of a thing I heard about. Like if you have a target list and maybe you've made contact with them before, maybe you haven't.
Yeah.
But you kind of know what they're into, right? Based on the industry they're in. If you see an article about them, or you see something on their LinkedIn or Facebook profile that maybe they're interested in, you can pull that article out of a magazine, preferably a print one, or you print one out. And then you take a Post-it note and you put the Post-it note on top of the article. You say, thought you might like this, and then sign it JT.
Yep.
And they don't know who JT is. They don't remember, JT is Jonathan Taylor.
Sure.
But then you put that in an envelope, handwrite the address, send it off. Yeah. And then the same thing, you follow up by phone and say, hey, it's just checking to make sure you got that article that I sent. This is JT, Jonathan Taylor. Sent you an article last week about whatever. And it's like something different. Like, it's not trying to sell anything. It's just good information that they would enjoy reading. And it's kind of like what we've come to do on social media, right? Or blogs, you try to provide some content so that you earn the right to make a pitch. Well, you can do that in direct mail too. Yeah. You can send them something that's pure content and then follow up with them to make your pitch.
Absolutely.
That's
I've mentioned this story before that I landed a big client years ago. It was a houseboat manufacturing company. And one of my strategies for doing it was, in order to get a meeting with the president, what I did was they happened to be featured in one of the issues of Houseboat Magazine. Magazine. So they make these big pontoon houseboats, right? And so they happened to be featured, and they won some award in Houseboat Magazine. I can't remember, but anyway, I literally went to the magazine, the online edition, got the online edition of that particular magazine, screenshot the cover and the feature article that they were in, took that screenshot, pasted it onto a send out card, right? Sent it to the president of that company and requested a meeting with him. Well, guess what happened? He, within a week, I followed up with him, got the meeting. And when I went into his office for the first time to talk to him, he had that card sitting on his desk. Just sitting right there. And, with that, on the very cover of the card, it had a picture like the actual screenshot, cover of that magazine with their name and everything on there. He was proud of that. And it got me the business. I won there's a lot of things that went into that. It got me the meeting that got me the business.
Right. Exactly. But that's a great, there's a lot of lessons in there, but one of the lessons that can be easily overlooked is, but he was a prospect. You had to be reading his industry stuff. Like, you couldn't just, not pay attention to that to catch something like that and then use something like that.
Right.
And some people are like, well, he's not a customer yet. I'm not going to, or they don't even think about, I should be reading all his trade journals. I should be finding out what he reads. Like, because if you see a mention where they get a shout out, and trade journals are big on that, right? They're going to shout out their members because they're paying a membership fee usually.
Right.
So they're going to be featured pretty often for different things. Or you can see that, a lot of times in trade journals, you'll see promotions from, new CEO or new VP of whatever. Right. And that's the person you want to talk to, and your guy moved on or your girl moved on. And if you don't know that, you look pretty stupid when you try to contact them again. So you got to keep up with that kind of stuff. Especially when you're going after these bigger clients, and you got to be up on what they're doing and what's going on in their world.
Yeah, absolutely. Another strategy, there's all sorts of things you can do with this, but that captures their attention. I like to do stuff like, you go through Trade Journal. If you're looking for clients that actually advertise in trade journals, screenshot like their ads in the Trade Journal, And if you're kind of a marketing or you're a copywriter or you're advertising expert, you can screenshot that and basically send them, put it on a send out card or put it on something like that. Write some comments that are just basically offering like, hey, saw your ad. Really, first of all, you don't make fun of their ad.
Right.
You compliment them, obviously.
You don't know
you're
who
not
wrote
going to
it.
get anywhere if you make fun of it, but compliment on some of the aspects of your ad and just say this. And this might be extremely helpful if you added this to your advertising next time. And then your contact information, you'll be amazed, and then follow up with them. You'll be amazed how far that goes.
Yeah, I remember a story Dan Kennedy told. He had a meeting with somebody, a big company. He didn't have a portfolio. He was just starting out. So he took all their old ads and ads of other people in the industry.
Right.
And he cut them out. He put them in one of those nice binders, back in the day, like the portfolios. And then he went through, his presentation was he went through and told how he would change every one of the ads.
Sure. Yep.
And he got the business.
Yeah.
So you don't have to even have your own stuff sometimes, especially in that kind of world. You can just say, here's what I would do different and here's why.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a great tip.
All right.
All right. Yeah. Sounds like a good place to wrap for this week.
Absolutely.
And, all right.
All right. Well, guys, thanks for listening. As always, you can find us over Persuasion by the Pint. If you have questions, you can contact us over at persuasionbythepint.com. Send us a question. You can also join our Facebook group over at facebook.com/groups/persuasion by the pint. And as always, you can find us on any of your favorite podcast platforms that you use for listening. And guys, thanks for listening. Sean, it's been fun, man. Good topic and a lot of good takeaways on this one.
Absolutely.
All right. See you guys next week.
See ya.